From an entire continent to a slew of bosses, old school RuneScape has expanded the world of Gielinor a lot over its decade-long life, and I'm here to see all of it. From a fresh main account, we're gonna complete every quest, and fight every boss, and hopefully get rich while doing so. This is Building a Main Old School Edition. Last episode, we wrapped up right as we were going into leagues, and in this episode, we're going to be covering what we got up to on this account during leagues, and some unexpected gains that came from playing leagues as well. The plan was pretty simple. Something I realized right before leagues launched is that stats make a huge impact in your damage output. In fact, every strength, ranged, or magic level is about a 2% DPS gain. This meant if I wanted to make the biggest impact on my PvM performance, I just needed to get a bunch of levels, and Nightmare Zone was the way to do that. In terms of level goals, I originally set out with the goal of getting 95 strength, 82 attack to equip Osmumten's Fang, and getting a reasonable defense level so I could start tanking God Wars, and then spending the rest of the time on ranged. The reality ended up being that range was so slow that I only ended up getting a few range levels and made much more progress on the melee combats than I originally planned. We got all the way, well, almost all the way to 99 strength, 90 attack, and 90 defense, as well as getting up to 89 range. However, the plan for range going forward is if I train it via anything other than Slayer or bossing, we will be using chins. And as for the other half of the leagues, the part I wasn't really expecting is that a bunch of the leagues items ended up being worth a ton of cash early on. Specifically, the Blowpipe Ornament Kit and the Home Teleport started out really high. So I was selling the Blowpipe Ornament Kits for like 7 mil a pop and the Home Teleports for 1 mil a pop. These did pretty quickly come down, but getting in there nice and early meant we made about 45 mil off the first few weeks of leagues, and this will be huge going forward for the account. To pair up with this was the announcement of a bunch of buffs and nerfs that were potentially in the works for melee weapons, particularly the Osmumten's Fang, which was noted as being too strong as a slash weapon when its niche is supposed to be as a stab weapon, and that would be nerfed. Now, this was definitely a massive overreaction by the economy, but I was more than happy to pick up the Osmumten's Fang at one of its lowest price points, just because of a potential nerf. And since we now have a Fang for stab, and we no longer need the Abyssal Dagger to train our strength with, we can now put this back on the G and reclaim almost 3 mil cash from that. We've also been continuing to sell Blowpipe kits. These have been going down quite a bit recently, so maybe not a great purchase there. But otherwise, the Home Teleport Scroll seems to maintain some semblance of value, so the last of my league points have gone into those, and that will hopefully sell for another 4.5 mil. So we're looking at about 35-ish mil to work with. Now, with that, I'm going to be picking up a couple items that are going to help with bursting rates. Now, the first of those is the Virtus Mask. So the Virtus Mask is a helmet that specifically boosts Ancients by 3%. So the main thing you care about when building sets for magic is your magic damage percent. Each piece of Virtus gives Ancients 3%, and the Virtus Mask is only 5 mil, and it's got a pretty consistent price tag, so we'll be able to resell it for most, if not all of the value again later. The other piece we need to pick up is the Tormented Bracelet. This gives 5% regardless of using Ancients or standard magics. We have a plus 6% magic damage boost along with a 3% max hit boost for Ancients. It probably comes as no surprise then what our plan is going forward. Given we've already trained up our melee and range stats quite a bit, our magic is now lagging behind, and bursting is one of the quickest ways to solve that problem. However, first, we need to unlock the best bursting spot in the entire game, and to do that, we need to cut 5,000 rubies to get one of the requirements for Monkey Madness 2. And there we go, 70 crafting done, which means we can now start Monkey Madness once I go and take a quick balloon ride. Okay, so we need to use 3 magic logs to travel to the Grand Tree via the balloon system, and I do not remember how to do this. And there we go. That's the last requirement to start Monkey Madness 2 ticked off, and our first Grandmaster quest is about to be begun. Now, you don't actually need to go that far into Monkey Madness 2 to get access to the maniacal monkeys. So for now, I'm just going to be doing the little intro to the quest, and then later on, we'll actually come back and finish it off. But that'll probably be after we hit 90 magic. Okay, now we're in the Apatol tunnels. We want to get over to the second obstacle, and then from there we'll be able to head down into the pits with the big maniacal monkey room. There's one we can already access via a hole just behind us. However, the clumps of maniacal monkeys, not that big, so in order to make the most of our runes, we want to use the one after the second checkpoint. Okay, attempt 2. This time we remembered our spellbook, so we're going to be using Ice Burst for basically all of this. I see no reason to use any other spell. It does the most for the cheapest runes, and I think I'm just going to use the stand in the middle strategy and just auto-retaliate. Seems the most chill. So yeah, now it's time to burst. I'm not going to do defensive because I train defense so much in Nightmare Zone. I'm going to stick to purely magic training and just go for 90 magic, and then we will be beginning a bit of a quest grind to unlock a bunch of PvM, I think. So after just over 5,000 casts, we got about 1.1 mil magic XP and up to 84 magic. Now to get up to 90, we do need to get another 2.4 mil. So I believe that's going to be about 12,000 casts, which is definitely more than 2 buy limits worth of runes. So I'm going to put those rune buy orders in overnight, and then tomorrow we will come back, do 12,000 more casts, and be done with this. Okay, so adding up how much all of these runes are going to have cost me, this was about 5 mil in death runes, just below 5 mil in chaos runes, and then the water runes about half a mil, if that. It's about 10 mil to get from 79 to 90 magic. So to get an idea of how much this helps us, going from 79 to 90 magic increases the Trident of the Swamp's max hit from 24 to 28. For reference, the occult necklace we are wearing only increases it from 24 to 26, and that then applies on the 28 to increase it to 30. So we are getting more than 2 occults worth of damage just for increasing our magic level. Now, sure, it's 10 mil instead of 500k for the occult necklace, but when you consider that the Tormented Bracelet is a pretty common next upgrade, and that only gives a 5% damage increase, increasing your magic level is a pretty cost-effective way after getting some decent mid-level gear to start improving your damage output. One thing that is definitely worth keeping in mind is your stats matter a lot, and once you've got some reasonable gear, you should probably start looking at those rather than just looking for the next gear upgrade. So that's why we're going to be going for about base 90s. I'm not going to bother going for 90 range over 89 will do. And yeah, that will be basically all of our stats sorted for diving into any PvM we could want to do in the reasonable future, excluding stuff like the Inferno, basically, and TOB, I'd imagine. So 10 mil later, and there is 90 magic done and dusted, and that's going to be pretty huge both for our accuracy and our max hit with the Trident. So the plan is, after this level, to resell the Virtus Mask and the Tormented Bracelet. We actually have more from the levels than we got from both of those combined. And then we're going to be using the money for a different piece of gear, which will be useful in some content we're looking to get into shortly. And yeah, there's my stupid amount of Nightmare Zone reward points that I'm going to be spending for God knows how long. Okay, I'm really glad I didn't save up like 1,000 of these and do that all in one go. What the heck happened to the prices of herbs? They're all kind of in the dumpster. Oh, yeah, we also have 4 mil from these. I am probably not going to get to sell that last one for 790k if I'm being perfectly honest. But a man can dream. Now that we've gathered up all our gold from Leagues items as well as the herb boxes that we gathered during Leagues, it's time to talk about our plans in the main game, and it's going to come as no surprise. We just made a bunch of money from Leagues, we've now got pretty decent stats, so we're going to be diving into a lot more PvM content in the main game. First up is completing the Beneath Cursed Sands quest. This unlocks the Tombs of Amascut, a raid I got a chance to play a bunch during Leagues. However, we were kind of busted during Leagues because of the one boosted combat style that you had, so I want to see how we fare without those buffs, doing it in the main game. And here's a quick flick through the invocations we tried at first. I decided to just throw it straight on a 155 because below 150 you actually have reduced chance of getting the good uniques from the raid, so you may as well try and clear it on at least 150 in my opinion, and you don't need to put on too many hard invocations to get to that level. As you can see in our inventory, we're running with Trident of the Swamp and Arims, Blessed D'hide with Dragon Crossbow. This is mainly for Zabek and maybe Warden. I might just end up meleeing Warden since we now have the Fang. And then the Bandos Godsword was what we spent the rest of our money on. We're gonna need this because a lot of the monsters in Tombs have relatively high defense, and even though their defense drain is capped, the Bandos Godsword, if it hits, speeds up the fights a bunch. And jumping into the raid, we're starting off with the Path of Krondis, which starts off with this little puzzle where you have to bring water back to this tree in order to help it grow. You have to not get hit by spikes or green energy on the ground. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to be other than just green energy. But there's this tile pack that throws tiles on the ground that tells you where you can stand to run between them without having to worry about the spikes, and all you gotta do is dodge the greens. Bring back 2 or 3 jugs of water if you let a crocodile nibble at the tree, and you're free to move on to the boss, which is Zabek. So unfortunately there's not really enough time in one of these videos to go through a full in-depth run through of TOA, so I might end up making a separate video on that if it's something that people are interested in. I've tried my hand at guide videos before and I have a little bit more of a casual approach to them, so you're not gonna hear about like red Xing or any of those more advanced mechanics. Is very much a get yourself through the raid kind of guide if that's the kind of thing that would interest people. So if you're interested in that, let me know down below. But the TLDR for Zabek for now is Prayer Flick between range and mage depending on which one he uses, and kick jugs into rocks and dodge waves. Otherwise, shoot the boss, don't melee unless you know what you're doing because he will bite you and it does hurt. One room I am going to talk about quite a bit now is the monkey room, however. This is because it's a room I struggled with quite a bit at the start, especially coming from Leagues where you had so much accuracy that it just didn't matter what style you used. Now, one thing to know is that every mob in here is weak to ranged except for the ranger, the thrower, and the brawler. Everything else is weak to or indifferent to range, so that wants to be your primary style while you're doing this. Otherwise, most of the stuff, especially on lower invocations, doesn't have enough health for it to be worth doing full 6-way or even 4-way switches. Just change your weapon, kill the one thing, get back to range. And another trick I picked up here to help with learning, it's not great for speed, but pretty helpful for learning, is to leave the brawlers and the thralls alive and focus on clearing up all the mages, throwers, cursed, shamans, basically all the monkeys that actually make things a little more complicated than just being dumb meleeers. This is because the spawns seem to be based on how many monkeys are in the room. If there are too many monkeys in the room, then it seems to stop spawning waves until the number of monkeys decreases. By leaving alive so many thralls and the brawlers, you can slow down the waves and just deal with them at your own pace. While this isn't great for speed and definitely wouldn't be recommended by most higher level players, this definitely helps when you're just trying to internalize everything in this room. And don't be afraid to melee P3 wardens. I spent quite a while thinking I needed to figure out how to do this with the Dragon Crossbow, but Fang just completely shreds it and there is no reason to not melee. Basically, the only issue with meleeing is that you have to be slightly more aware of borders because you don't have as many tiles that you can attack the boss from, but otherwise it's really not an issue. It's the same right, left, middle pattern as you would if you were ranging. And again, if you have a Fang but don't have a Bofa, this is a perfectly valid approach to take at Wardens. I didn't have enough restores. More restores next time. Well, no perp, but I'm happy with that one. That was quite a few CAs. Hey, Fred on the first. 260k. So where did I struggle? The necklaces were a pain in my rear, I'm not gonna lie. Not having a ranged necklace is kind of annoying. I kept having the wrong necklace on for different gear sets. Getting used to meleeing Kefri is new. Prayer was a big problem. Like, prayer was a really big problem. But yeah, I definitely needed more super restores, less brews. And for those of you wondering why I stopped 5k XP away from 99 strength failure, I plan to save it for a special moment. And there we go. There's 99 strength. Although all those days spent AFK in Nightmare Zone paid off in the end. Thank you for the help, Dark, and thank you for the 99. That was worth it. Okay, let's do the rest of the Karam Jahads. However, those will have to wait for next episode, along with a bunch more PvM, including continuing to learn and improve at Tombs of Amascut, as well as jumping into some group PvM, now that we've got some utility to offer the group in the Bandos Godsword, as well as some solid stats, and a reasonable weapon to boot. If you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do, and I'll catch you again next time, unless you would like to catch some more progress live over on Twitch 1 hour after this episode airs, in which case I'll catch you there. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you again next time.